1% improvements to upgrade your mixes instantly. And I'm going to be breaking down these improvements into 3 categories. First category, organization. I know it's boring, but there are things you can do when you're organizing your session that are going to make it sound that much better down the road. The second thing is practical processing. Things that you can just do easily and apply pretty much across the board no matter what mix you're doing. And the third category is the fun stuff, effects and flavor and little quirks that I do in my mixes that are 1% improvements, but they help the mix shine. Organize layers by frequency register. So I'll give you an example here. I've got this harmony here for the chorus. In terms of layering them, what I like to do is have the lowest frequencies first and then slowly go higher up in the register. And the reason being is when I start to mix, I like to pin my low frequency down to the rest of everything else. So I'll play that alongside the kick and the bass. Okay, because I like to have low elements balanced with kick and bass first. And then because I've got my high, I'm pretty sure that the Foreman is slightly higher than the high version. Super high. I'll then balance all of these through, and it's like almost like a tonal EQ for that group, because instead of having them all mixed up, now I have low frequencies, mid-high, and high, and super high actually. And if I want to make this overall group brighter, instead of reaching for an EQ, I can just put more of the super high in. So take a listen to how I can manipulate the tone. And this is almost like a 3-band EQ, but from left to right, it's low to high. And it's just an organizational thing I do in my mixes.
Have a chance to make it work, chance to make it work, chance to make it work. We didn't even have a chance to make it work. Have a chance to make it work, chance to make it work.
It's just a small little detail when you're grouping your stems and whatnot. I like to have low frequency stuff in a stack on the left, high frequency stuff on the right, and slowly move it across. So that way it's almost like a graphic EQ when I'm looking at all my channel strips there. VCA faders. Okay, so when you set up your mix, set up VCA faders for all your large instrument groups. And the reason being is it's a great macro control to rebalance your mix. And yeah, you can have them grouped, but VCA faders means instead of having to scroll through your session to try and find where you're going to end up, there's the those are the vocals, you scroll, there's the snares. You can just go to one folder, all grouped together, and have full control of your mix. Take a listen to this as it works its way through.
Someone we didn't even have a chance to make it work, chance to make it work, chance to make it work. We didn't even have a chance to make it work, chance to make it work, chance to make it work. We did.
And another thing to do is when you're creating your VCA faders, create 2 extra ones. One for all of your channels, so you can change the whole gain structure feeding your mix bus. That's what I've done here. And another one for all your effects. So if the client's saying the mix is a little bit wet, you've got all of your parallel sends for reverbs and delays and everything grouped onto one VCA fader. So you can actually make the whole mix wetter or drier with the power of one fader here. And the final organizational one, I didn't do a great deal of in this particular mix because the producer did a great job, but it is using clip gain before you do any processing on your vocals. So that means going through every little vocal, take and clip gain writing it. So the loud ones are brought down, the soft ones are brought up. You can talk about doing vocal automation after the fact or using a compressor, but actually going through every single word and phrase and automating a clip gain line goes miles ahead for a really clean sound because you're not imparting any harmonics in the process by using additional processors. That said, some automation I did here was on these breaths, which are a little bit loud, and it's just a cleanup thing you can do before you start mixing. Automate the clip gain of all your vocals before you start it. So just take a listen to this breath here.
In that flashback to the past when we...
But if I have it louder...
In that flash...
Too loud. Just duck it before all your processing. So now onto practical processing. Now with vocals, this is something I like to do I learned this on one of Andrew Sheps's pure mixes, is to create a parallel stack. So you have a stack of different buses that you can blend in different effects and reverbs. So for my lead vocal, I have a parallel processor, reverb, spatializer, widener, crusher, and shine. I'm not using much of these because the producer baked in a lot of it, but it's good because if I just want to automate the brightness that this Aphex Vintage Exciter is giving in parallel, I can do that independently of my other effects. So take a listen to this here on the chorus lead.
We didn't even have a chance to make it work, chance to make it work, chance to make it work. We didn't even have a chance to make it work.
And the practical aspect of this is because these are all these effects are attached to their own volume fader for their channel, you can automate these effects in and out and around one another rather than just having one effects bus for all of your vocal processing. The next practical process is to phase align your drums. Now, there's some live recorded drums here, and I'm so fortunate because the drummer Thomas Shannon, who works remotely with the producer Julian on this, he's a really good drummer, but he also knows how to produce his drums super well. So he's actually phase aligned these drums perfectly for me, but it's just an extra step. Take a listen to the drums. They're already phase aligned at the start of the session when I went to set it up. You can see I've got auto align here. I tried to see if I could improve the alignment, but they were super tight as they were. It's worth doing on every mix. I didn't have to do it on this mix, but just make sure you put it as a checklist. When you start a mix, if you've got live drums, align them before you start mixing. The next practical processing tip, again, is for drums. And this one I learned from Luca Predalesi, is to compartmentalize your drums. So from here to here is my low or the kick drum. From here to here is all my low perk elements. And from here to here are all my high perk elements. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to those VCA faders we set up at the start. And what I've got here is I've got low perk, high perk, kick. So the utility of this when you're mixing is if you want the drums to be brighter, you can bring the kick drum down or you can bring the high perk up. So we'll do that. Or conversely, if you want a darker tone, you can bring the kick up and the high perk down. And if you want it more mid-range or rhythm-driven, you can bring just the low perk up itself. So you got that downbeat on the 2 and 4 very focused. So again, that's very similar to how I organize my stacks like I did with the vocals, where when you read from left to right, where are those vocals? Here they are. When you read from left to right, it's almost like a graphic EQ on your mix channels. So here it's like kick, lowest frequencies, low perk, that low mid, high perk, mid and upper range. And then that way I can just make little 1 decibel, 2 decibel adjustments on the VCA faders to change the overall tone of the drums without actually going in and having an EQ or change any filters or effects directly. The final practical processing tip is contentious and people are going to pull me up on this, but that is to mix into a clipper. And the reason why I mix into a clipper is a few things. The first thing is I'd rather just tame those peaks, and there's a good trade-off, especially on punchy music like this, where you've got punchy drums, is you're getting some nice harmonics added to those clipped peaks. The next thing is I prefer using clipping over relying on mixed bus compression, because then everything underneath the clipping has a little bit more dynamic movement. If you're compressing the whole signal, everything is moving. If you're clipping, you're just affecting the peaks, which is nice. And you can actually see that here when I turn this clipper off, how much harder this compressor has to work. Take a look at this. So the compressor ends up working a lot harder than it has to, where I just want the compressor kneading things and the clipper taking care of those peaks. So there's still a good range of dynamic movement throughout the whole mix. So I gotta say, congratulations, you made it this far into the video, and this is the effects and flavor part. This is what everybody comes for. It's the fun little quirky shit. This is a way I can change the tone, but I do so out the sides in the stereo field, okay? So this is how it works. We create a pre-fader send, so we'll make this pre-fader. Make sure we're looping this here. We'll just loop this. Cut that all out, there we go. Loop these chords. And what we're going to do is we're going to monitor this parallel signal, and we're going to first do a bandpass filter. That's the first thing. We need a bandpass filter so we figure out exactly what energy of this guitar we're going to focus on in the mix. I like that part of the guitar. So what we're going to do with that is then we're going to distort it. Now I did use Calvin on the original mix, but I'm going to use Decapitator in N mode just because there's a few little bouncy notes in this register which I want to like almost limit or compress, and the N mode on the Decapitator has sort of like a naturally compressive action to it. Perfect. So you find the focus, you distort it, and then you add wider, okay? And then I'll show you how this blends in. Wider at 200%. That's fine. It just makes it super wide. Just makes that pop a little bit. And then what I have is I have a complete presence control in a fader. You might notice I really like using faders for automating things in and out down the track when I need to make mix changes or small tweaks. Now I have, this is what I would call presence control on the mix. So I might not even put this in. I might set it up and not use it in the first mix I send to my client. But if they want a little bit more presence on that guitar, I can feed it into here and then just change how much level or presence I'm actually putting back into the mix from that exact parallel set. The 1% mix improvement is that you can send your reverbs or delays to the opposite side of where that instrument element is. And you probably see it a lot with guitars. So we've got this nice, cool, plucky guitar. I'm going to half pan it onto the right and then add a little bit of delay to the left. See how this goes. If you're wondering, I've got this effects already set up, the guitar effects over here, and it's just Echo Boy, just doing its thing. A little bit of delay on that right. It's just a more quirkier way to work the stereo field without having to use stereo widening effects is if you're panning an element one side, just move the reverb slightly away or the echo slightly away from that part of the stereo field so it spreads it out. Simple. The fat, wide bass, this is a small little trick you can do. You can set up two parallel channels, a mono and a stereo, one to affect the energy in parallel down the center and another one to affect the energy out the sides. We're going to focus on the sides for this one because what we've done is we have slammed the shit out of it. Number one step. That's how I do it. Then we saturate it with Calvin, then we make it wider. Now take a listen to when I bring this stereo in and out of the mix, or of this bass, and then I'll put it on in the mix. So there you go. Those are the 1% improvements. I think no matter what level of mixing you are, will help you improve your mixes, whether it's an organizational one, some practical processing tips, or something creative, which I showed you. You can take any of these and be at any mix level or for any mix and really apply it to help your mixes get better. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. And until next time, take care.